Now you will learn about switch statements. The way a switch statement is structured is switch, and then a value inside parentheses, and then brackets, and then inside the brackets, a bunch of cases. And that don't have to be in order, and then possibly a default, which is optional. Then inside the cases, you can have statements or multiple statements or nothing at all. And the way the switch statement will work is it will check for the number or value inside the parentheses. Then it will look for the case that matches it. So in this case, case 7. So then it'll print A and then B in this case. And then it'll go on to the next case, print C. It'll go on and then go on and print D. So then in this case, it'll print A, B, C, D. If I change the 7 to a 2, then it'll print A, B, C, D. If I change it to an 11, it'll print C, D. And if I change it to 5, it'll print D. And if I change it to a number that doesn't match a case, say 6, then it'll go to the default if it exists, and it'll print D in this case. In addition to values, you can also put variables inside the parentheses of a switch statement. So for example, if we set U to be 7, then we can switch on U. And now it'll print A, B, C, D, as if the U were instead of 7. Now sometimes you might not want it to just go on to the next case. So for example, you might just want it to print A, B, and then stop. In that case, you just put a break statement, which just breaks out of the switch statement. And in this case, it would just print A, B. And if U were 2, it would just print A, B, and then break out of the switch statement. Here's an exercise. Determine the output if Q is 1, 7, 11, and negative 5 in each case. So when Q is 1, Q times 2 is 2, so it goes to case 2, and it prints A, and then B on the next line, followed immediately by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the break stops the switch statement, as shown below. When Q is 7, Q times 2 is 14, so then it'll print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then break out of the switch statement. When Q is 11, Q times 2 is 22, so it'll print out Q, which is 11, and then it'll print out QWERTY afterward. When Q is negative 5, it'll go to the default case and print QWERTY. Next exercise. Determine the output of the following. So first, when I was 0, it doesn't match any of the cases, so I++, and then it prints 1. Then I becomes 2, so then when I switch on 2, it goes to default, and then I becomes 3, and it prints 3. Then I becomes 4, so then when I switch, it goes to the default, and I becomes 5, so then it prints 5. And then I becomes 6, then switches on 6, so it goes to case 6, I equals 8, then goes to default, I++, so I becomes 9, prints 9. Then I becomes 10, so then I is no longer less than 10, so then we're done. Next exercise, determine the output. So first I is 0, I%3 is 0, so then I switch on 0, which means that I go to case 0. I print 0, then I becomes 1, then I go and print 1, and then I break out of the switch statement. So then I could do I++, and now I is 2. Then I switch on 2, which since 0 and 1 don't match it, I go to default and I print I over 2, which is 1. Then I becomes 3. 3% 3 is 0, so I go to case 0, print 3. Then I goes to 4, then I print 1. Then afterward I break, which means I go to the I++, so then I becomes 5. So then it goes to the default because 5% 3 is 2. So then it prints 5 over 2, which is 2. Then I become 6. 6% 3 is 0, so it goes to case 0. And then it prints 6. Then I become 7. And then it goes on to the next case, prints 1. And then it breaks. Then I becomes 8. And 8% 3 is 2, which means we go to the default. And we print 8 over 2, which is 4. Then I becomes 9. And then 9% 3 is 0, which means we go to case 0, print 9. I becomes 10. Then we go on to the next case. And then we print 1. Then we break out of the switch statement. And then I becomes 11. And 11 is not less than 10. So then we're done with the for loop. And the output is shown below. Note that the break statement here breaks out of the switch statement, not the outer for loop. The next exercise. Prompt the user for an integer n, then output the nth ordinal number. So the ordinal numbers are just first, second, third, so on. So for this one, you first need to import scanner if you didn't do so. Then you need to define a scanner if you didn't do so. Then since we already did it here, we won't do it again. Then afterward, we prompt the user for an integer n. Enter an integer. Then afterward, int n equals input.next int. Then we first take care of the weird ones. So like if n% 100 is 11, or n% 100 is 12, or n% 100 is 13, then I print n and then th. And otherwise, I switch on n% 10, and basically case 1 system.out.println n plus st break. Case 2 system.out.println n plus nd, then break. Then case 3 system.out.println n plus rd, then break. Then default system.out.println n plus th, and we don't need a break because we're at the end. And then it should work. So if we enter 37, 37th, enter 23, 23rd, enter 12, it's 12th. The next exercise is print the first 100 ordinal numbers. So for this one, we can just use a for loop going from 1 all the way up to 100. Then afterward, we can just copy the code we have up here and then paste it here, replacing all n's with i's. And then without the user input. and then the output is that.